On November 25th, 1996, the parents of Heather Wendorf, Rick Wendorf, and his partner Ruth Queen are brutally murdered in their home. Their lifeless bodies are in the kitchen and family room, and in Heather's room, a goodbye letter. She's running away. But Heather isn't a killer, only a 15-year-old misguided teen who's fallen under the tutelage of 16-year-old self-proclaimed vampire Rod Ferrell, who will later admit that he enjoyed the rush of playing God and taking lives. This is Rod Ferrell, The Vampire Murders. Hey y'all, I'm Chris Calvert.
And I'm her husband, Rob Pottorff, and this is our third child, Scotty.
And I'm Robin Peterman.
Welcome to Hitched to Homicide.
For better or worse.
Till death do us part.
Welcome back, everybody.
Yes, welcome.
And, and the giggle you hear across from me is my lifelong friend, BFF, ride or die, one of my favorite people in the world, everybody. This week we have New York Times bestseller, writer, novelist extraordinaire.
An all-around good person.
Robin Peterman.
That's the nicest intro. Oh my God. Thank you. And I'm thrilled. And I would like to point out right now that I have no idea what this story's about.
She doesn't. She doesn't know. Rob never knows what the story is when I tell it to him either. It makes it better. I think everybody's reactions are so much, they're real. Everybody's reactions are so much real. So much real, so much better. Everybody's reactions are
so much
better.
realer.
I would go with either one of those. And I'd like to point out I'm terrified. I'm scared after that intro.
Well, you should be.
Okay.
And also, everybody, all Hitched to Homicide listeners, today, release day, it's actually Robin's birthday.
21st.
Her 21st birthday. So everyone, including Scotty, is going to join us in wishing her well on her birthday. We love you so much. And happy birthday. Everybody go visit Robin and send her a note today and wish her a happy birthday.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Robin. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday.
Aw, thank you.
But before we get started, everyone who's listening, like, rate, and review. That helps other people to find us. Rob is actually going to share a couple of reviews that we got.
Yes, we always like to get our reviews, whether they're bad or good, but we've never had one bad one. Isn't that amazing?
That's not true.
Oh, okay.
Nice.
Hey, that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
That's not true. What is it, Robin? You make them either love you or hate you.
There you go. Okay.
That's right.
Just don't let them forget you.
There you go. Exactly.
Perfect. Well, the first one we have is really nice. It says, as someone who listens to many, many podcasts, this has everything and more. 10 out of 10. Captivating stories, wonderfully compelling, host in-depth research, and conversation. All of it. Would absolutely recommend to anyone and everyone.
Thank you.
That's nice.
So do that. Go out and recommend everybody.
Yeah.
Please.
Yeah.
Go out and recommend. We're doing great, though. Downloads are amazing.
And that one is from C_E_W_.
Yeah, everybody's little handle is different.
So thank you, C_E_W_.
Thank you very much.
We
If you want to go leave us a review, we appreciate it.
Yeah, I have actually one more.
All right, I'll let you do one more.
This one's selfish.
Oh, okay.
This is from
It has to be about the music, Robin.
Well, you know, This one's from 4545 Dollar Boy. I love this podcast, and the music is the icing on the cake.
And we know how much you like icing.
Yeah, I know. Anytime I can be the icing on anybody's cake,
You're the ice into my cupcake, baby.
There you
Don't
go,
worry.
sweetheart. Thank you, baby.
Don't worry. Don't
Thank you.
worry.
I love you too.
Well, leave us a review. You can also join our Facebook group, The In-Laws and Outlaws. Just go in there and answer a couple of questions and you're in. I love it when people come in because they suddenly start going through everybody's posts and liking them. I always get a kick out of that. And I have to say, I'm going to brag on you, or I don't know if this is a brag or not. I've had more than one person, whether they be an in-law or an outlaw, more than one person who listens to the podcast send me a direct message to say, I love Rob's voice.
I think it's very sexy.
No one has ever said, I love Chris's voice. They'll say, Chris has a dirty laugh. Dirty laugh.
I just want to say.
Okay. All right, Barry White. You're the ginger Barry White.
There you go.
That's what it is.
It couldn't be further from
All
it.
right. Enough about us. I want to talk about Robin.
Oh.
Robin has 55 books. I think I wrote it down somewhere.
Really?
I think you have 55.
That-
I think I wrote it down.
That's amazing.
Yes, 55 novels and novellas.
Yeah.
Wow.
So some are long and some are full length. Yes.
And that was all in 1 year. That's
It
what's
was.
really amazing.
No, 1.5.
Oh,
But
sorry.
yeah, no, I am I write fast, prolific, and I'm a workaholic. But
Yes, you
I'm
are.
also sitting here with 2 other workaholics. So I'm
Yes, you are.
in very good company.
All of that is true. Robin's actually a former professional actress, and she's been on Broadway. She's been in film and TV, and now she lives here with us in Kentucky. With her wonderful husband, her 2 beautiful, amazingly talented children. Yeah,
I do.
we love your family. We love your family.
Well, I love you.
And you like to write in your sweatpants. I read that on your website.
Yeah, I do, and I'm wearing my sweatpants right now.
And I know that that's true because I write in my
Yes,
sweatpants too.
I like a job where I can wear a profane T-shirt, sweatpants, no makeup, don't have to get Botox, don't be a certain weight. That's my thing.
One of my favorite shirts you ever bought me says, I love tacos.
Yes. And is that true or what?
It is, especially on Taco Tuesday. Well, I want everybody to go check out Robin's website. It's robinpeterman.com, ROBYNPETERMAN.com. She has all kinds of amazing books. Everything you can find it at Amazon. She's on Audible because most of our true crime podcast listeners are listeners.
Yeah. Yep.
So all of Robin's books are on Audible, and I've been dying to get you in here so you could be a part of Hitched to Homicide. And because you write snarky, funny, witty, crazy paranormal books, and you have a whole series called the Hot Damn series about vampires.
I'm scared. Yes, I do.
I wanted to do a vampire true crime.
Oh, God.
And then as I started doing the research, what I found out is this case starts in Kentucky.
Oh, my gosh. Okay.
Yeah.
Good.
Western Kentucky. So I'm ready to get into this. It's crazy. Before we go, I want to thank some sources: horrorobsessive.com, the Orlando Sun-Sentinel, the Washington Post, windorfmurders.wordpress.com, MSNBC's Interview with a Vampire, Oxygen's Deadly Cults, The Daily Beast, Real Stories, the Naples Daily News, the University of Kentucky U Knowledge, The Daily Commercial, and The Embrace, a true vampire story by Aphrodite Jones. I will have links to that book and all of the sources in the show notes.
Wait, is that book nonfiction or fiction?
It's a true crime.
Oh, it's a true crime.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
Okay,
it's
not,
based on, reality.
Okay. It's
Yeah.
based on this case?
Yeah.
Okay.
So let's do it. He claimed to have been asleep for 500 years. Robin, I can't even get through the first sentence because as I was writing this stuff, I was like, oh my gosh, there's so much. There's so many things in here that you're just going to either giggle over or be like, yeah, that's right.
Or it's going to make my butt clench. Let's go. I can feel it.
He claimed to have been asleep for 500 years, but it was time for him to awaken as Rod. He would be an American teen.
Rod?
Rod. odd.
Okay, got
He
it.
was Vesago, a vampire who during the 1400s was a powerful and privileged part of the French aristocracy. And during his 500 years of slumber, he was a spirit. And while a spirit, he would roam the ancient worlds of Arabians and the Egyptians and the Greeks.
I'm going to call bullshit, but keep going.
Quote, "Lest mortals destroy themselves with their own hate and greed, I have been cast on this land. I am the devil's child, walking with earthly feet." End quote.
Okay, so I'm going to interrupt just for a second because I'm going to get my movie reference in sooner than later. And here it is. Son, fat, drunk, and stupid is no way to go through life.
Walking with earthly feet, too.
So go ahead and post on Facebook.
There we go. In reality, his name is Roderick Justin Ferrell. He's born on March 28th, 1980 in Murray, Kentucky. Murray is a small college town home to Murray State University in western Kentucky. It's much like any other small town. In fact, Murray has been named the friendliest small town in America by Rand McNally in USA Today. Go figure. It's located in Callaway County. Murray began as a post office and a trading center. And our story doesn't really take place in Murray as much as it's a fertile ground for the growth and development for a young Rod.
So is it also known as the birthplace of vampires?
Well, there are vampires there. I don't know if there's...
Vampires or vampire?
Oh, this is a family of vampires. Just wait.
Oh, my God.
Better call Orchid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just wait. Rod's parents were children themselves when they actually had him. Sandra Gibson and his father, I believe his name is Rick. And I say this because these two meet in homeroom in high school. She gets pregnant. By the time he's born, his biological father is really out of the picture and maybe in the military, but there's not much out there on Rod's father. But I can promise you he wasn't in the picture at all. These two are married and divorced within the same year that Rod is born.
Okay.
And after Sandra has little Rod, she bounces back and forth between living with her parents in Murray and low-rent housing to relatives in a place called Eustis, Florida. It's a small rural Florida town 40 miles from Orlando. And Sandra would be an exotic dancer and even a sex worker at times to make ends meet.
Okay.
But it's in Florida that Sandra is introduced to the world of vampires. And according to her, there were clubs where you could go, you could dress up, and there were people who lived the lifestyle of a vampire, and sometimes spelled Vampyre.
That's how I spell
That's
it.
how Robin spells
It
it.
is in my books.
That's
yeah.
in
'Cause
Robin's
I
book.
think it's pretty. The way it, okay, but wait. Lived as a vamp. You're going to get more into this,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Because, okay.
Yeah.
Because now I'm very fascinated.
It's an alternative lifestyle and subculture based around the mythology of and popular culture based on vampires. And stemming largely from the goth culture, participants within the subculture range from those who dress as vampires but understand themselves to be human, to those who assert a need to consume either blood or human energy.
Ouch.
Okay. Are we talking we're getting our teeth filed and all that kind of
Some
stuff?
of these people do get their
how-
teeth filed.
And they're drinking human blood?
They are drinking human blood. Hang on. Both types of vampires may assert that the consumption of blood or energy, sometimes referred to as auric or pranic energy, is necessary for spiritual or physical nourishment. Prana is the Sanskrit word for breath or life force. And I did a little research into this, and here are the types of vampires in the lifestyle. Are you ready for this?
I'm probably not, but
Drum
yes,
roll.
go.
They're the sanguinians. They consume the blood of others. Then there are psychic vampires.
They bite and drink, or they
They
go to a
drink-
blood bank and get it?
They
or-
cut each other usually, or they bite.
Oh,
Ow.
so they do this with other vampires?
Yes.
Okay, psycho. But
Where's the fun in that?
I know.
Come on.
They know it's. I know.
There are psychic vampires who claim to attain nourishment from the aura or the pranic energy of others in order to have a balance, a psychological or a spiritual balance, because they have an energy deficiency. There are hybrids who both consume blood and assert that they consume psychic energy. There are blood donors, people who willingly allow other members of the subculture to drink their blood and may or may not exhibit subservience to those who do.
Oh, okay. So they're not really a vampire.
They're just, it's called a blood doll.
yeah.
So why would you donate your blood?
Because they're
You
into
need
this
therapy.
they're into this world.
Yeah.
Then there's blood fetishists. That's
Yeah.
really hard to say.
Yeah.
And they use blood as a stimulant or a sexual fetish, sometimes drinking it during the course of sadomasochistic
Here, I got it.
Sex. Help me, Robin.
Sadomasochistic sex.
Thank you.
And-
exactly.
Yes. But the blood, the drink.
Yeah, and they're role players.
Is that good for you? I mean, I can't even. How much?
They're not drinking I don't think they're drinking a lot.
Okay.
Yeah, you'll kind of get an idea of it.
Yeah, just have a V8 and call it a day.
Okay.
No kidding. No, or have a really nice rare steak.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Well, they're
Extra rare.
also role
Bloody
players.
There.
Hey, shh. So they're also role players or lifestylers, acknowledging that they are human beings role playing as vampires. And they may dress up in vampire clothing. They live a vampire lifestyle, like they sleep in coffins.
Okay.
And primarily participate in role playing such as Vampire the Masquerade.
Oh, jeez.
That's called foreshadowing.
Okay. So that's a fourth subset.
So it goes all the way from people who consume blood
yeah.
and live that lifestyle and are
only
really
blood? Because, you know,
No.
some
They
of the
eat
tropes are that they only can drink blood.
Well, no, they die because they really are human.
Right.
But they will file their teeth. They will do all. But usually that's from what I read, that's usually in situations where you're in a consensual sexual relationship and you're allowing yourself to be bitten. And apparently it can get kind of bloody. And I do talk about that a little bit later on. Okay. But that's the lifestyle that these people, his mother, is into. This is who she's hanging out with. And according to her, they're decent ones, and they're the ones that make everybody look bad. Well, Sandra makes everybody look pretty bad, too.
Sounds like a very fine line.
Yeah.
Yeah. When Rod is 5 years old, he's sexually molested by his grandfather in Murray and possibly his grandfather's friends. Rod is later going to say that it was all part of a ritual. There's a lot to unpack in that story, and it changes over the years. But because I always tell the story in chronological order, I'm giving you that little bit of information right now.
Heartbreaking. Okay.
As Rod is growing up and he's shuffling back and forth between relatives in Florida and Kentucky, his mother joins this vampire lifestyle while living in Eustis, Florida. She meets a vampire. She takes part in an initiation called the crossover.
Oh, my God. Wait, are we talking like they're living off the grid, like together?
No.
With these vampires. So they're living in a house, they have a job,
Wow.
and then they're being a vampire. Okay.
Yes.
Got it.
Wow.
Got it.
This is a ceremony where you're basically taken in and initiated as part of the vampire family. She is cut. They drink from her. Then she drinks from them. And they consider the blood to be, according to Sandra, the true life. They call the blood the true life.
I wonder if they have like master vampires who are like in charge.
They do, and I'm going to talk about
families,
one.
like
Yes.
who turns you, then you're loyal to them.
Yes, and
all
I'm going
that bullshit.
Yes,
Oh my
I'm going to
God.
talk about all of
Okay.
that.
Okay.
But I wrote in here, kids imitate their parents, right? Doctors' kids grow up to be doctors. Actors' kids grow up to be actors. Rod is very influenced by his mother's lifestyle. And by the time he's a teen, vampires grow up to be vampires. And by the time he's a teen, he's being drawn into this vampire circle. And he's a troubled kid. He's a victim of sexual abuse. He lives in an unstable household. He's looking for anything to hang on to, anything to get his feet under him. And I'm not defending him, so do not email me. But if you read into his early life, it was a rough one. It was a show. And so are the lives of most of the people who are around him.
Sad.
Now, by the time Rod is 14 or 15 years old, he says that he was entranced by the vampire lifestyle and thought it could give him the, quote, inner strength and power I needed, end quote.
So were they thinking blood gave them superpowers? And
They do think blood gives them superpowers, but I think most of these people, is being a part of something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're very lost. They feel very alone.
Do the police keep an eye on this kind of stuff? Are they aware of these vampire
just
cults?
wait. The police are watching them constantly.
Oh.
Now, Sandra included Rod in her vampire circle, and according to some, Rod was what they called a blood doll. A person that is fed off constantly. So
She's
it's
a crappy
safer.
Mother. She is a
think?
Crappy mother. But he's fed off. He's a kid. It's safer. No disease.
Right.
So he's just basically being abused and used in Florida.
Wow.
God.
But he's a kid, right? He's still going to school. He's doing other things kids do, like dressing in all black. He wears combat boots. He has a long black coat in the middle of the Florida heat. But at Eustis High School, Rod meets 14-year-old Heather Wendorf. Now, Heather's heard stories about Rod being a vampire, but Heather's a shy girl. She's artistic. And at first she thinks he's odd, but at the same time, it's 1995. Heather is depressed and has already decided that she wants to be dead by the year 2000.
Oh.
It's a 14-year-old kid who's really depressed.
And whose parents obviously aren't.
Her parents are actually really good people.
Okay.
Really good people. She's just a depressed kid.
And they haven't tried to find therapy for her?
No. And you'll see why in a second. But Heather's attracted to him. He's arrogant but sensitive. She doesn't find him physically appealing because let me tell you what Rod kind of looks like. He's tall. He's thin. He has a long, narrow nose. He has very pale skin. He has flowing, long black hair. He's a redhead, by the way. He dyes his hair.
Oh, great.
Okay.
But she's drawn to him. He tells her that he's a fallen angel. And Heather's been reading Anne Rice, and the idea of drinking human blood was weirdly appealing to her. And Rod gave her the Big Book of Death, which according to Amazon, I put this in here because I knew you would love it. The Big Book of Death looks the Grim Reaper in the face and laughs with tales of outmoded methods of execution, capital punishment, visits to famous cemeteries, body disposal, weird deaths, and stupid murders, and more. And what I thought was interesting, that was like the little blurb.
Yeah.
What I thought was interesting that was in the book description, there were 2 misspelled words.
Oh.
It was published in 1995. It has 23 reviews on Amazon.
Okay.
So it's not a huge book, but he got this book for her.
So
Okay.
a little light reading, right?
A little bit of light reading.
Yeah.
So he's really a mixed up kid. And so it's Rod and this depressed girl who has a stable home life and loving parents, but she's depressed and looking for something, anything. And remember, she feels like she wants to die. And now he's telling her that she can be the undead.
What?
And Heather has said that she knew he wasn't a real vampire, but he filled a void in her world.
So I don't know if we're going to get to this. Do these undead individuals think they're immortal?
Yes.
Okay.
Wow.
The ones who think they're undead do think that they're immortal.
Okay.
Hence, why he had been sleeping spiritually for 500 years.
Wow. Wow. That's messed up.
It's super confused.
At school, she was a bit of a loner. She didn't feel connected to anybody. And there are all kinds of interviews with these people 25 years later who are no longer vampires or live the lifestyle. And they've all said that they were broken people or teens that were just looking to belong.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And Heather and Rod would meet at the cemetery after school, a place they called, quote, the birthplace, end quote. Now, granted, her parents think she's staying after school to watch her older sister, Jenny, who is a cheerleader. She's in cheerleading practice, but she's hanging out with Rod. And this sparks some outward changes in Heather that her parents notice. She gets new ear piercings. She starts wearing gothic outfits. She had a Barbie doll hanging from a noose off the back of her backpack.
Now, I'm going to say those are some red flags, but okay.
But her mom thought she was an artist and was expressing herself and her individuality. And she was an artist. She was would sketch and paint. And Heather's dad would have been happier if Heather had been a cheerleader like her older sister. But her mom, Ruth, encouraged her to be herself. And here's the kicker. Heather is a really good student, and her grades are not dropping, even though she's changed everything about herself.
Okay.
So she's still getting really good grades. She's still showing up for everything she's supposed to show up to. But a lot of depressed kids are the best and the brightest. So
Yeah, this is no different than a cult.
yeah,
This
absolutely,
is,
it's
just
a cult.
a really up cult. but
Absolutely.
yeah.
Rod started telling Heather that he could smell her blood.
Oh.
He always referred to her as
Rod's.
his fledgling.
Wow.
This is very creepy.
And then she starts dabbling in witchcraft. She wants to be immortal, and Rob has created this space in her head that she could be a vampire with him. And she vacillated back and forth, according to her, between wanting to go back to her life before meeting Rod and moving forward with him. He gave her all these occult books. He performed blood bonding rituals from a witchcraft book. They used drugs. They had sex. And she's allowing him to cut her with a razor blade and drink from her arm.
Ugh.
She's being a blood doll for him. And here's the thing. They always cut, and nobody said anything about this, but they always make 3 cuts. 1, 2, 3. And to me,
Upper arm, so it's
on the arms, wherever, but it's always 3 cuts. And I was like, it's like the Holy Trinity.
yeah,
Yeah.
the Father, Son,
Wow.
oh my
And
God.
they say when you have demons, when people have
Yeah.
demons in the house or whatever and they
Yeah.
get scratched, it's usually three
And
scratches.
3 scratches, yeah.
And
Well,
it's-
you see that. Any kind of monster thing, it's
And
always
it's
the 3.
it's the demon thumbing his nose at the Father, Son, and Holy Ghost.
Wow.
And so these vampires cut themselves 3 times. I didn't read that anywhere. That's Chris thinking what Chris
I like
wants to
that.
think.
Makes sense.
How did her parents not see the cutting? I mean, they
She
live
hid
in
it.
Florida.
She hid it all. She's wearing all black.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
And nobody wants, I mean, she's an artist. They just want to think that she's an artist.
Yeah.
But Rod also has a girlfriend, Janine LeClaire. She's another girl he's beguiled, and Heather's best friend or frenemy. I couldn't decide from all the research. Janine was Rod's real girlfriend, and Heather was Rod's minion. And Janine resented the fact that these two were so tight. They spent so much time together, but Janine didn't go to Eustis High School. She went to school 20 minutes away down the road.
Was Janine a vampire?
No,
Oh,
not yet.
checking.
And
Okay.
neither is Heather yet.
Yet.
She's just a blood doll. She's just letting him drink from
Is
her.
Rod, the 500-year-old
Yes.
man, person, vamp, drinking from Janine too? Cutting her up and having sex with her?
Not yet.
Ooh.
Not yet.
Ugh, gosh.
Okay.
But Janine didn't go to Eustis High School. She went to school 20 minutes away. And I even read that these two had a child together, one that she gave up for adoption. But I don't know if that's true or not. Different sources give different things. But I think that part of the vampire lifestyle is to sleep with whomever, whenever. And with Rod in his little head, he's got these young girls who want to be vampires. All the girls would sleep with him because sex and feeding were something that happened together for Rod.
Wow.
Now, Rod told Janine that she was an ancient queen and Heather was some sort of prophet. Like he could see into their lives with his vampire vision.
Because he was immortal.
Yeah.
And here's the kicker. When November rolled around in 1995, Heather was depressed, and in order to help her out of it, Janine suggested that she come to church with her. But Heather wanted nothing to do with church. And Janine thinks that when Rod does his vampire stuff, he's imitating Louis de Pointe du Lac from An Interview with a Vampire.
Okay.
And if you haven't read the book,
Yeah.
the Anne Rice book, sadly, she passed away
Way
recently.
Yeah.
Louis is the Brad Pitt character.
Mm-hmm.
It's not Tom Cruise. That's Lestat. But Rod wants Janine to think that his blood isn't human and Janine isn't buying it. But Heather and Janine are both cutters, and she's been participating regardless of how much she buys into it. She's not letting him drink from her, but she is a cutter.
Okay.
But Rod is moving back to Kentucky again with his mom. And I've read it was because his mom, Sandra, had fallen out with a man, a vampire. I don't know. But they're moving back to Murray, Kentucky. And this is really sad for Heather and for Janine. Janine's upset because it's early November and Thanksgiving and her birthday. She's a teenager. She still wants him around for, other things, not just being a vampire.
Right.
And on the Sunday before Rod is leaving town, he takes Heather, Janine, and Heather's boyfriend, Jeremy Huber, to his room. See, Heather has a boyfriend.
Heather had a boyfriend?
She's a blood doll.
Right.
Is Jeremy a vampire too?
No.
Does he know anything about what's going on?
He's finding out what's going on. He's getting clued into what's going on.
Okay.
He wants Janine to participate in bloodletting, but even though she's a cutter, she really doesn't want to. He cuts his own finger, he wipes the blood on his lips, and then he kisses her.
Okay, that's gross.
So he's like got blood in his mouth, and then he kisses her. And then she curls up on his bed.
It's not
and-
hot.
Yeah, and then
Yeah.
Rod joins her, cutting himself again with an X-Acto knife on the arm. And this is when she drinks from him.
Ugh.
And Heather's boyfriend is watching and chanting a spell that Rod had handed him to recite. And I was like, if anybody hands you a spell to recite, just say no.
Dude, this is like the stupid leading the stupid.
Oh,
real.
you have no
Stupider.
idea. And they believe it all.
So what's Heather's boyfriend's name? Jeremy? Mm-hmm. He bought right in like 5 minutes?
Well, apparently he's like, what's going on? They're like, here, read this. And he's like, okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, great. Great.
Yeah, don't read a spell if anybody hands
Right,
it to you.
Bad idea.
exactly.
But Rod's mom, Sandra, walks in and she loses her shit. She grabs Rod by the hair. She knocks over, he's got an altar with candles and stuff in there. She knocks over his altar and the holy water. She tells all the kids to get out. And as Rod walks them both to the door, he says, quote, "Don't worry about my mom. She's just mad because I refused to sire her," end quote.
What?
Well, it means to turn her.
To turn her. He
Into-
refused to
The
turn her.
fact that I'm acting like I'm...
You do know what
I
it
do know
means,
this.
yeah.
Like your sire is the person who turns the human
Yes.
into the vampire.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
And then they have to be loyal to their... Well, in some tropes,
Yes.
they have to be loyal to their sire.
That's crazy.
People, this is why Robin's here today.
Because but my vampires, guys, are like seriously funny. This is not.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's why this is a true crime.
Oh, God. I just can't even. I'm having a little hard time rapping. Okay, keep going because now I can't let you stop.
After they all leave, he threatens his mom with a knife and tells her to leave him and his friends alone. And then he says, just kidding. And he goes back to his room and he fixes his altar.
Whoa.
His mother screams at him that she hated him. She wished he was never born. She told him that he ruined her life. She's screaming at him. And according to Rod, she comes at him with a knife and tells him she wishes he was dead. Rod pulls his own dagger out and presses her against the wall and stabs the blade near her head, telling her that next time, I won't miss.
Wow.
So he's threatening his mom, but yet he's staying with his mom. Sandra and Rod move back to Murray, Kentucky, where, believe it or not, there's a vampiric house, Robin.
Of course there is.
And according to the 15-year-old leader of the vampiric community, his name was Jaden Murphy, vampire law is that human life is sacred and it actually forbids murder. And the cutting and drinking of human blood is all a part of them seeing themselves as a different race than humans.
Okay. So, I mean, that's in vampire literature too. It's like old school.
Right.
To kill your human, suck them dry. And you don't need to. They just need a little sip.
Yeah.
So is that what our 15-year-old new friend is saying?
Yes.
Okay, great.
Yeah,
And
he is.
Okay. A 15-year, okay.
Wow.
He's 15, and he says, quote, we are a high form of evolution because the capabilities we have are what most people dream about, end quote. So they are very delusional about what it does for them.
Okay.
But once again, I think they've read these books. They're in these small towns. There's nothing to do.
Right.
Nobody wants to be around them. They're all kind of outcasts. And they've created this whole world in their heads and all around them.
Yeah.
Is so much of this taken from literature, like fictional literature, or were there like, because computers weren't real big then.
No,
I mean, how
no.
are they getting this?
Books that go to the
Books.
library.
So is it Interview with a Vampire? What?
Yes, that and old occult books and all kinds of
Okay.
bullshit that they find. Yeah.
Okay.
Jaden is also from a dysfunctional, the 15-year-old
Yeah.
leader. He's also from a dysfunctional and broken home. He meets 15-year-old Rod at Callaway County High School in Murray, Kentucky. Rod and his mom, Sandra, are kind of rekindling old relationships again in Kentucky and with the local vampires, including Jaden. And Rod was never brought into the vampire family in Florida. He was never crossed over. But when he makes it back to Kentucky and the Kentucky vampiric house where Jaden Murphy is the head of the family, he wants to be crossed over.
Okay, back up. I thought he was a full-on vampire down in Florida.
Oh, he's
No.
telling everybody he
He
is.
is. However, he wasn't. And he's offering
Not
to turn
officially.
Heather and all these. Okay.
Not officially, but you're going to see he's recruiting his brood. So that's what he's telling them down there. He's
Okay.
grooming them, basically.
Grooming them. Okay.
Right.
According to Jaden, this vampiric house in Murray was a rented home where people sort of half lived, half didn't live. There were anywhere from 5 or 6 people staying there to 20 at a time. And according to Jaden, being a vampire isn't like what you see on TV. It's just everyday living with more sex and blood. And the blood drinking took place mainly at night in the graveyard, the Old Salem Cemetery, to be
man.
exact.
Okay, we need to do a day trip, Chris.
I'll go with
I'm
you
not
there.
even joking, but okay, go.
Well, just because you asked, I'm foreseeing what everybody wants to know. Here's a little bit about the Old Salem Cemetery.
Ooh, okay.
It's thought to be haunted.
Yep.
Duh. It's just, yeah. It's just outside of Murray in Callaway County. There's a sign on the road nearby that says, quote, as you were, I once was, as I am now, you soon shall be. So pray today, end quote. And the man that painted the sign for the cemetery died the night after completing it, or so the story goes.
Well,
It's a good story.
Yeah.
I've heard of very strange things going on there, and across the road from the cemetery, there are 13 graves of what was once a witch's coven. Take that
Oh my God.
what you will.
We are
Make that
so-
out of
We're
what
getting
you
Catherine, and we're going.
will. We're getting Catherine Kaufman,
And we're getting in
and
the
we're
car.
going. I agree. Our
Getting the
psychic
band
medium.
back together.
I'll drive because you drive like a granny.
I do great. She's telling all my secrets. Robin's got a lead foot, and I drive like a
have lead
granny.
foot. This is, yes.
I'm a defensive driver, Robin.
You're a good driver. You're a good slow driver.
I am a good.
And I'm a good fast driver.
This is all true, all true. But Jaden, the 15-year-old, he's a part of Vamps, the Victorian Age Masquerade Performance Society, where they dress up in Victorian garb and they role play as vampires. This actually sounds kind of fun, but they take it a little far, right? And when Rod shows up at Callaway County High School, Jaden is thinking, okay, this guy's a poser or something. He's wearing the black coat. He's got the long hair. He's dyeing his hair black. What gives?
Right.
It's the fall of 1995, and Rod starts hanging out with Jaden, and he wants to be crossed over. And he wants to become a part of this family and a full vampire. And according to Jaden and Rod, the darkness, the sex, the blood, it's all very intimate, mystical, magical, and mesmerizing. The extraction of blood is done via razor blades or surgical scalpels. That's how they do it.
And are they drinking from each other, or
They're
are they drinking
drinking
from
from
blood
each-
dolls and stuff too?
Blood dolls and each other. In Murray, they're drinking from each other. I never heard that there was a blood doll. Murray.
Today is the first day I've ever heard the term blood doll.
Is blood doll going to end up in a book?
I think it is because it's creepy.
And according to Jaden, when you have a house of 5 or 6, there's always enough blood to go around. But now and then there are people who have had their canines sharpened. This is what you were asking about, into fangs. Yeah. And they tear at the flesh. And according to Jaden, that can get pretty bloody. But if you're feeding off of a lover, it's not as bad because the blood is symbolic.
Okay, do you know how dirty a mouth is?
Yeah.
Like filthy. So they're opening wounds.
Yes.
And putting bacteria. I mean, how many people end up, I hope they all had tetanus shots and a good...
Do these people sound like they've been keeping up with their health?
Or a medicine chest of antibiotics?
They're not getting flu shots,
or what the
tetanus
fuck?
shots.
Oh.
Not to mention hepatitis.
Yeah, dude. So, okay. Oh, okay.
Then one night in January 1996, Jaden does cross Rod over.
Okay.
They do it in the Salem Cemetery at what they called their tree, where, quote, all chosen ones had been made by their sire,
Chosen
end quote.
one. Very, very normal. Okay.
Jaden makes 3 slits on his arm, and Rod drinks from him. Rod makes 3 slits on his arm, and Jaden drinks from him. They sit in quiet meditation for a few hours, apparently. But officially, Rod is part of the family, and his sire requires his obedience. This is exactly what you were talking about. And Rod's really not down to be obedient.
Okay.
He's not up for that much.
Okay.
But Rod's hooking up with a few old friends from elementary school now that he's back in Murray, including a kid named Scott Anderson. And now Rod intends to take him into the coven and ready him for his eternal existence. This is what he wants to do with all his friends.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
So he meets up with his old friends, and suddenly he starts talking to them, and he wants to take them into the coven.
And they're all cool with this.
Apparently they are. They're very lost kids.
Yeah.
And remember I said that Rod's not a dummy? Well, he reads lots of books on the occult. He does research at Murray State University. When he talks about being a vampire and the dark side, when he's talking about all of this with these kids, he does it with such authority and such confidence they believe him.
It sounds as if, too, I mean, I don't even know if this guy's still alive, this Rod kid, but he sounds very charismatic.
Yeah.
I think he is.
And probably,
I've seen videos with him. I think he's just kind of creepy.
Oh, just creepy.
Yeah.
Okay, interesting.
I think he's kind of creepy.
Interesting.
But like I said before, all these kids have something in common. Most of them either had a tortured childhood of some sort, a troubled home. And Scott had a troubled home life. He was in and out of foster care. He bounced back and forth from his own home to foster homes, and he'd run away as well.
Yeah, it's sad.
And Rod had more than likely suffered this sexual abuse. And Rod tells everybody that he identifies with Jack the Ripper and Jeffrey Dahmer.
Whoa.
Great.
Those are his, idols.
And was Rod bisexual? Or
well, they're all bisexual, apparently, because
I was curious.
Yeah,
about that.
they do talk about the fact that in the vampiric house, sex is male, female, male, male, female, female,
by choice,
or everybody.
Ooh,
don't know if it was by choice.
So was part of his crossing over sex with his sire?
It might have been. It might have been
in a graveyard.
Yes, in a haunted graveyard.
Whoa, just twisted.
My idea of a good time. Okay. That's not in my books, guys. Okay, let's keep going. God.
Yeah.
Rod tells everybody he's tired of being persecuted. He was tired of trying to fit in with what he thought was a hypocritical society. He now had a personality that others feared. He was claiming that he could annihilate his enemies by pulling the life force from their soul.
Okay.
And
Rod's delusional.
Yeah.
He is. And all of these vampires, they're very callous to the world. But what Rod wants and what he begins to do is gather his own group of vampires to cross over himself. He's building his own little army because he wants to usurp Jaden.
Okay. So he's going outside his coven.
He is.
And creating another one that's going
Yes.
to. Okay. That's
Yes.
just so much more stupid leading stupid, but yes.
Yes.
Yeah, they should have just gone with Dungeons and Dragons or something like
Yeah.
They do play
Rod-
Dungeons and Dragons.
Rod would have been
They
so
do.
much better
They do.
off.
He grew up playing Dungeons and Dragons like with his mom and his mom's friends. So, but I don't think there's anything wrong with playing Dungeons
No,
and
we
Dragons.
we know
game.
people that play that don't kill people and drink blood.
Yeah, exactly.
that.
Exactly.
Right.
Rod is defying Jaden, and he's got his own breakaway clan. And here's who they are: 16-year-old Scott Anderson, who I
Yeah.
just told you about.
Yeah.
19-year-old Dana Cooper.
Okay.
A new girlfriend Rod has acquired since coming back to Kentucky. Her name is Charity Kesey, or Shay. I'm going to call her Charity because all the sources did.
Okay.
And Charity was instantly in love with Rod. She's 15 years old. She's got a big crush, a great sex drive, and she really wanted Rod to ignore everyone else and concentrate on being with her. She especially wanted him to ignore his, quote, girlfriends in Florida, Heather and Janine.
Okay.
It made Charity cringe when he talked about him. And Rod said that he was very much in love with Charity. He told her that no amount of love would take him away from his vampiles, Piles. Have you ever heard of that?
No. Is that like a pile of sex partners?
I mean, I don't know. He just called
Okay.
him his vampiles.
That's too weird.
Ew.
And I looked it up, and there's an author named James M. Roberts, and the author calls them vampiles.
Okay, is vampire like your harem? Is that what
Maybe.
it's implied?
Maybe. I don't think so, because even Scott was, who knows? He could have been sleeping with Scott, too.
True. Okay, does Jaden not know that he's getting ready for a smackdown?
Jaden knows. He sees what's going on.
Okay.
Yeah, he sees what's going
Why
on.
I don't feel loyalty to Jaden. I don't feel loyalty to anybody. I'm just curious.
There's nobody to
if
feel
we're gonna-
loyalty in this story.
And
Believe
where's his
me.
mother in all of this? Does she?
Yeah.
The
Who
moms
knows?
are pretty much non-existent.
She just yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
They're pretty much raising themselves.
Yeah.
If that makes any sense.
And not doing a good job.
No.
Okay.
No.
Rod would sleep with Charity, but he never gave up his lust for blood rituals and sacrifices. And as soon as he would leave Charity's bed, because he's not cutting on her, as soon as he would leave Charity's bed, he would meet up with his own coven and feed.
Wait. So his new little coven outside, they're not bloodletting and bleeding and drinking.
They are, or he could be going to the vampiric house that he started at, because Jaden doesn't really know that he's out there gathering an army. Yeah.
Got it.
Not
got
yet,
It.
anyway.
Got it. Okay.
But Charity would talk about marriage, and Rod would talk about death, killing.
That doesn't really go hand in hand.
No.
And adding a whole new meaning to death do us part.
Yeah. No
Oh,
kidding.
yeah, really. I did not even make that connection until right now. You're so smart.
Thank you. I'll be
Yes.
here all week and try the veal.
Charity seemed to be someone that Rod was really comfortable speaking with. Quote, the first night we talked, Rod told me he was part of a black mass when he was a kid. Have you ever heard of black mass?
No.
He said that these old men had sacrificed an animal and dripped blood all over his naked body. It was really weird. He was crying about it.
Yeah.
This is part of his sexual abuse story.
Okay.
That his grandfather, who's a part of the Pentecostal church in Western Kentucky,
Oh,
wow.
and he participated in this black mass. He called it black mass.
you know,
Whether or not that's true, I have no
Yeah.
idea. Don't email me. Don't call me.
Yeah.
Don't do any of that.
I tell you what, from the way hearing about what has happened to this kid, I mean, it's no
Yeah.
win.
He didn't have a chance.
Yeah, I mean, who could say?
Okay.
But when he talks about the girls in Florida, he specifically talks about Heather. He wants to recruit Heather Wendorf in Eustis, Florida. He wants her to become part of his little clan.
And Charity does not like that, does she?
No, she doesn't like him talking about all the girls in Florida. And while Heather is in Florida, she misses Rod. She's on the phone with him, long distance, no cell phone. And these two are running up quite a tab. I think I read that the long distance charges were anywhere from 22 cents a minute to 15 cents a minute, depending on what time of day you're calling.
Do you remember that kind of stuff?
That's like so
Yeah.
fun. Yeah.
Yeah,
I
sure
mean, when
do.
I read it, I was like, oh, yeah.
Yeah.
But Rod's mom, Sandra, was forced to shut off the phone because of a $1,000 phone bill.
Rod's mom.
Yeah,
Oh,
because
shit.
Rod was calling Heather.
Heather. Okay.
In a telephone conversation with one of Rod's friends, Heather says that she hated her parents and wished Rod would come and rescue her. And according to another vampire in this group, quote, he always talked about killing someone if he didn't like them, end quote. So Heather's like telling everybody, come rescue me. My home life is hell. I hate it. And he is saying, I want to kill somebody.
Neat.
Jaden, the sire of Rod in Murray, Kentucky, isn't happy with Rod when he finds out what's going on.
He doesn't believe in killing, right? He doesn't.
No, because
Jaden seems like a fairly decent vampire.
And actually,
as vampires
he's
go,
as vampires go,
he's
pretty decent.
Yeah.
Jaden actually considers himself a Christian and claims to use his immortal gifts to serve the forces of light. Rod realizes that Jaden was no vampire. That's what he said. And under the circumstances, Rod found it a perversion to allow Jaden to remain the leader of the coven. And to himself, he vowed to clean up the sorry state of affairs. And he warned Jaden to stay away from Florida and his vampires because, quote, they had perfected the art of killing and they had been taught to destroy all rivals.
Whoa.
End quote.
Oh my God. So in Rod's warped imagination, vampires are satanic, correct? Is that where we are?
Well, they're the undead. He thinks he's a product of Satan for sure.
Okay.
Right.
He thinks he personally is.
His vampires.
And then everybody else is just kind of a minion of his.
By the way, vampires, that sounds like something that happens when a vampire visits Taco Bell at 2 a.m. in the morning.
It's like, I think I'm going to
Go ask your proctologist.
I know.
Yep.
Yes. But I think in Rod's fertile imagination that it's, I think, like a harem
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you're probably
Yeah.
right.
of
Exactly.
sexual undead partners.
Yeah, I think that's spot on.
Okay.
Yeah,
would
I think
too.
I think they're his little fledglings.
Neither is
I
it.
think you're right.
Neither is appealing, though.
No.
Neither Taco Bell or harem. Okay.
Don't come after us, Taco
Yeah.
Bell.
No.
No, hey, I like
Yes, I
Taco
do
Bell.
too.
However,
No vampires.
yeah, exactly.
But bad things started happening in Murray, Kentucky.
Like they haven't already.
Well,
but
this
okay.
is really bad, and I'm going to go through some of this so fast because Robin and I are both animal lovers.
Oh.
There were reports of animals hanging in trees.
Okay. Go faster.
Rumors about witches' covens meeting to cast demons from the graveyard. Bizarre markings were found along the highways in Callaway County. And all this time, Jaden and Rod are still performing and feeding in their rituals, just different vampiric houses.
Okay. Who owned that house? Do we know?
They rented it, and I've seen video of it.
Does it still exist? Does it still stand?
Another road trip.
I don't know how it was standing then.
Okay, because I was going to say, when we go to the graveyard, we might need to take a drive-by.
And they walk everywhere. So the people in Murray, Kentucky would always see these people with like white makeup.
Murray's little.
It's teensy weensy.
Yeah.
And they're walking to the graveyard all dressed in black with black fingernails. And there's nothing wrong with the Gothic lifestyle. You
Correct.
do you. I don't have a problem with that. Do you?
Yeah.
Go do yourself.
Yeah.
Right.
Just don't
Okay.
hurt anybody or anybody else. And
Right.
that's kind of what they're doing. But that's sort of what Jaden was saying. He's like, ours is consensual. I don't know if that
And
was
we're not
true
ki-
or not.
and we're not killing
But we're not
people.
killing anybody.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
So Rod leaves behind the people who bring him into the vampire community. It was a mutiny pretty quickly, but
Yeah.
Rod, Scott, Heather, and Janine LeClaire, Heather's BFF, have been talking for the last 7 months about running away together, even though Rod has many, many people who want to join his little clan of vamps. He had more girls hanging on him than he knew what to do with, and most of them were in junior high. They were 12 and 13, 14 years old.
Jeez.
Where in the
man.
hell
Are the parents?
all the
Right.
parents?
I don't know. I don't know.
Oh my God! Like,
Wow.
We're moms. I mean,
I
when
know,
I hear
I
that,
know.
that
I
makes
know.
my butt clench.
Yeah,
But-
I think it's just a really at-risk community of
Yeah.
kids, and they really were at risk.
Yeah.
And remember Sandra, Rod's mom, she's really into vampires. Well, that's where Rod got started.
Right.
And Rod's friends all think that it was really weird. They think it's hinky the way his mom, Sandra, acted around Rod. The two of them would hold hands and walk around town. She would flirt with her son, and those around them said it was really hard to watch and even harder to explain. It was really uncomfortable. And that is a lot coming from a group of people who drink each other's blood.
okay, and how?
Yeah, for real.
There's not a huge age difference, right? What was she, 16 when she had him?
She was 17, I think, when she had him. Yeah.
Okay,
There's enough of an age difference, and that's
Yeah.
incest. And I just have I don't think he slept with his mother. I really don't. but it's hinky.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
that's
a weird
That's a
situation.
shut the front door type.
Yes, it
gross.
is.
Yeah, exactly.
All right.
And while Rod grows his group of followers, his coven, Rod is growing his hair even longer. He continues to dye it black. He likes to go to the cemetery and hang upside down from a tombstone. He reads from a book of shadows, reads from what's called the Book of Shadows.
Did you look that up?
No.
Okay.
I stay so far away from that stuff, Robin.
What is that? I know.
The Book of Shadows. I don't read any of that.
Okay.
People who listen to the podcast know I wouldn't touch a Ouija board with a 10-foot pole.
And nor should you.
No
Yeah,
way.
I'm not interested. I'm not in. I'm afraid I'd take something home
You
with
would
me
take
from the
something.
cemetery. I mean, I'm just kind of like,
Exactly.
You
no.
would. We might. Maybe we shouldn't go.
Oh, if we
Murray.
take Catherine,
we're
she'll
fine.
protect us.
Okay, that's fine. Okay, we're good.
Yes, you will.
That's good.
But he would swallow matches. He claimed he could shoot fire from his fingertips. Do you
Dude's
have anybody?
losing it.
Do you have anybody who shoots fire from
Yeah,
your fingertips?
most of my vampires
can
but
do that.
Guess what?
They're fictional.
I write fiction. I mean, they feel real to me, but they're
They're fiction. Yeah.
fiction.
Yeah.
They're
Well,
fiction.
and all of these kids, they all basically came from a situation where they had nobody to count on in their lives.
Yeah.
And they found this group, they found each other, and they were a family. But Sandra's all up in Rod's business. She calls the
I thought
Murray.
you were going to say something else, but go on.
Yeah.
Go on. Keep going. I got it bad. Okay.
She calls the Murray Police Department because he's out of control, according to her. She can't control him, but Rod had met with the juvenile court system and agreed to see a mental health worker.
Good for her.
Sounds like we're going in the right direction.
Yep.
But he never went to his appointments. And when Rod acted out again against his mother, yelling, not coming home, she called the psychologist. So the psychologist calls them both and says, we're going to have a come to Jesus meeting in my office. But Rod skips out. He never shows up. And then a month later, they finally get together with the trained healthcare professional, and Sandra tells of Rod's drug use. He's doing LSD, he's smoking weed, and he's carrying around an occult book, and he's cutting. That's what she's telling the social worker.
Okay.
Is that all true?
It's all true, yeah.
Okay.
And the social worker suggests that Rod be sent away to Charter, a rehab facility where he can get the care he needs for his drug use. And his mother says... No.
What?
Quote, some really terrible things happen to children in those kinds of hospitals, end quote.
Holy
Yeah, so it's like, I'm not going to help my son, and I'm going to complain about what's going on, but I'm not going to let you help my son either.
we think she's doing a bunch of drugs too, correct?
Absolutely,
Right.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Rod is ultimately kicked out of high school. Sandra wanted her parents to save Rod, parents that she called physically and emotionally abusive to her, both
Wait,
members
that's
of the Pentecostal
that's her-
church.
that's
her parents,
Yeah,
his
so
grandparents.
that's his grandfather who
the one that
sexually
he said sexually abused him and did the whole black mass thing.
Okay.
But when Sandra can't handle him, she turns him over to the authorities. She files a habitual runaway complaint against her son and is ready to press charges. And now there's a court order for Rod to go before a juvenile judge to determine what happens next.
Rod's going to skip town is what Rod's going to do.
Yeah.
Well, I'm only telling you this because Sandra is about to get caught kissing and sending love letters to a 14-year-old boy.
Whoa.
Oh.
The boy and his...
Not good.
Ew.
And the 14-year-old boy, I believe, is Jaden.
Jaden?
Yes, it's his younger brother, Jeremy.
Oh, man.
That's how she meets
This
him.
is
It's Jaden's little brother, Jeremy.
all of this is so
Twisted?
ick.
It's manky.
Yeah.
Very manky. There's your new word, people. Manky.
Yeah.
Go look that one up.
Is that a real word?
Manky? Mm-hmm. Manky. Manky. It's gross.
Okay.
Pornographic letters were sent to the boy by Sandra. On June 23rd, 1996, she sent a letter asking if they could have sex. She even sent the boy, who is Jeremy, a key to her home, telling him that he could come live with her.
Ugh.
She told this young boy how sexy she thought he was and how much she missed him. Quote, "You may be very young, but you are very fine," end quote.
Wow.
She told him she wished he was 18 so they could have wild sex. And quote, "I hope it doesn't upset you that I feel this way," end quote.
Whoa.
My point is,
Yeah.
this is Rod's mother. She's charged with soliciting rape and sodomy, and she's going to spend some time in jail for it.
Thank you.
So this is the woman who's like calling the police on her son.
Oh.
And Rod's ashamed of his mom. She was even throwing herself at Jaden, the vampire leader. And Rod told Jaden that he wanted to leave Murray and that he had homicidal ideas about his mother, and he was afraid he might carry them out. And Rod asked Jaden to kill her He says, you kill her.
What?
And Jaden says...
Jaden sounds like a vampire pacifist, though.
He says no.
Oh, okay. That's what I
And
thought.
Rod says, quote, well, I'm going to kill her anyway, and I'm going to kill my grandfather, too. I hate that sick bastard. I want that dead, end quote.
Wow.
Is Rod still 16?
Rod is 16.
God.
This is all happening within a very short period of time. Couple of years.
Yeah. So did he?
Yeah.
No. Instead, he's ready to leave Murray for Eustis, Florida. He's really ready to go. And he tries to talk Jaden into coming with him, but Jaden had just graduated from high school and he was heading to college at Murray State University, where he was going to study acting. He wanted to go to Hollywood because they role play all these vampire things, and he thinks he'd be pretty good at it.
Rod never tried to usurp Jaden's authority then, ultimately.
He never took those vampires away from him. He just created his own crew.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
And these two went back and forth between hating each other and working together because...
Do you think there was some kind of relationship there, too?
There might have been because, remember, Jaden is his sire.
Yeah.
So possibly... And Jaden was all about the hierarchy of how things were supposed to be. Like, there were rules, and Rod wasn't following the rules.
He's an OCD vampire then.
He was an OCD vampire.
Okay.
That's a really good way to do it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Well played.
But it's about this time that Jaden sees something that really disturbs him. Not only does he think that Rod is taking the vampire thing too far, he also thinks he's like losing his mind. And one day when the two of them are walking through a trailer park, Rod sees a kitten, picks it up, and slams it into a tree.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Oh, man.
And Jaden knew that Rod had no respect for life, and the idea to run away to New Orleans after picking up Rod's vampiles in Florida, that's a no bueno now for Jaden. He's like, I'm out, forget it, you're f***ing nuts, and we're done.
Bye-bye now, bye-bye.
Yeah. And Jaden officially kicks Rod out of the vampire coven, and Rod declares war. Whoa. He starts making Molotov cocktails in his bedroom, and he's planning on blowing up the old Salem cemetery.
Huh. Okay.
And this is the part I'm going to go over quickly because there's a whole section on this.
Is this going to be upsetting?
It is. In October, the county animal shelter had a break-in. There were dogs everywhere, but puppies had been tortured and killed. That's all I'm going to say. I don't want to talk about it.
Yep.
No.
And police are like, it's got to be our friend Rod Ferrell. It's him. And Rod shows up at the sheriff's office and says something to the effect of, quote, you're looking at me for this, but I didn't do it, end quote.
Sure.
Meanwhile, Sandra's out of jail. And now she's calling the cops all the time. She thinks Rod's going to blow something up. She calls because there are apparitions in her room. She calls because there's a bloody goat's head in her bed.
What?
And each time the police show up, there's absolutely nothing.
Imagine that.
Well, the mental illness here
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
There's a plethora of it.
Yep.
And the police are digging deeper into the animal cruelty case. And when they hear that Charity, Rod's little girlfriend, is talking about it in the high school cafeteria, police go over and question her. And she says, it's horrible what happened, but it wasn't Rod because Rod is an animal lover. But we know
Rod's not.
That's not true.
Right.
Meanwhile, he's telling some of his followers that he's a killer, that he'd kill them, that he'd killed other people. And he kept their body parts, but he would never let anybody see them. Okay. But all these kids are super loyal to him. He's got them under this spell, for a lack of better words. And his girlfriend, Charity, well, according to everything I read about her, she really wanted to fit in with him, but she didn't want all the things that Rod wanted, like to leave Murray, Kentucky. And the sex with these two very young kids, 16 and 14. That's what's going on.
Lord.
Wow.
Yeah.
Man.
She said that Rod was a dream lover who could be a perfect gentleman 1 minute and then turn into a freak. A 14-year-old is describing her sex life.
Well, just wrong.
Yeah.
Okay.
But Charity's girlfriend, Dana Cooper, was really enthralled with Rob. She had
Dana's also 14, right? And part
Dana's
of the coven.
No, Dana's actually the oldest one. She's 19.
Got it.
Dana is 19. She's one of Charity's friends. And
there's something wrong with that, too.
She gets called into the coven. Well, she's lost.
Yeah.
And she had become Rod's trusted servant. Dana's a little older. She's 3 years older than Rod, to be exact, 19. And when she got her own apartment, Rod and Scott Anderson practically moved in with her. Rod was ready to make his escape from Murray to Florida. And this was the privacy he felt like he needed from his mom and others to make the plans.
Okay.
They need a way to get to Florida. And Rod was worried because Heather's letters that her parents were hurting her were getting more and more frequent. So here's what Rod knows. Scott's got a Buick Skylark. He's got a piece of Buick Skylark, and he's thinking it's not going to make it to Florida.
Right.
And Scott and Rod even contemplated murdering Rod's grandfather and stealing his Jeep.
What neat people.
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
Right.
And it's at this point that Sandra, who's out of jail for, soliciting sex with a 14-year-old,
Great.
calls Scott's dad,
Okay.
who shuffled him around the foster homes his whole life, and says, I think we need to keep these two apart.
What a genius.
Oh, my God. Too little, too late, baby.
She tells him about the phone bills to Florida, and Scott's dad tells her about his son's girl in Florida. And everyone's like, wait, hold the phone. Scott's got a girl in Florida? That he was taking a wife. That's what Scott is saying. Scott's only 16.
Right.
And the wife he's talking about is that Rod had promised Scott that Heather would be his dark mate.
Whoa.
And Heather had agreed as long as Janine, her best friend and Rod's old girlfriend, was willing to run away with them too, from Florida to New Orleans.
Okay, so the foursome.
Yeah. There's actually going to be 5 of them, but yeah.
Because Dana's going too.
Dana's
Okay.
going to go too.
Okay.
She is on the character. She knows exactly who we're talking about now. I know
so
it's a
we're
lot of
leaving-
moving
We're
parts.
leaving Charity behind because she doesn't want to leave Murray.
No, Charity's going. You just wait.
Oh, crap.
You just wait. And that's called foreshadowing.
Oh,
Bum,
okay,
bum,
okay, okay.
bum.
So Rod feels compelled to remove Heather from her parents, but Scott thought it was strange because when he talked to Heather, she never mentioned that her parents were torturing her.
So I think Rod's making all this shit up.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know who's making up what.
Okay.
But Rod told Scott that Heather's parents were snooty rich folks, that they were greedy and selfish, and they put these things before their daughter. And Scott is thinking, she lives in a really nice house. Her dad plays golf at the country club, and her mom doesn't even work. That sounds like a pretty good life
Yeah, right.
compared to the life that they were
They
all
all
living.
have, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Scott Anderson was really involved in the Dark Ages in the Gothic world, and he was into Ozzy Osbourne's lyrics that talked about, quote, the army of the devil's children. They just take little scraps of cultural media and put it all together. They
Right.
weave this fabric of what it is
Of what
they want it to be, to create the
Somebody's
world.
going to go after you for this, but take the Bible.
Yeah.
Just take a line out of this and a line out of that.
Exactly.
You can argue any argument, both sides,
And
and prove it.
And that's basically what they were doing. Rod told Scott that he wanted to consume the souls of so many people, and by, quote, killing them, he could send their soul back to hell. The more souls he sent down there, the more possibility that he could open the gates of hell and complete the circle and let the demons go.
Jeez.
God, he is really busy.
Wow.
I mean, he's got so many things planned.
I don't know how he gets it all done.
Oh,
Yeah.
So I think these kids are role playing because at one point or another they all doubt Rod. These are his little minions. They're kind of role playing. They all, at one point or another, I read every single one of them doubted Rod of what he's saying, what he's capable of doing.
Right.
They're trying to get into it. They realize it's not real, and Rod is the only real thing they can hang on to at the same time. So the one real thing that's true and stable to them is Rod, but yet they can't believe him. But do they want to believe him? I think they want
the
to
irony
believe
of what
him.
you just said when you said stable and Rod
Yeah.
in the same sentence.
Yes.
is, there's such an irony. there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
agree.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So Heather and Scott start writing letters to each other. I have them. I can post them in the In-Laws and Outlaws. And I've got all kinds of photographs of these kids, even one of Rod hanging upside down in the cemetery. But it's the letters that Scott and Heather send back and forth are mostly about who they were in their dreams and how they'd lived before and the past lives that they had had. You know, I'm all about past. Go get your past life regression.
Yeah.
Go do all of that. Just don't kill people.
Good words to live by.
But even though Heather's writing these letters to the person who's going to be her dark mate, Heather has a boyfriend in Eustis, Jeremy Huber. She's got a little boyfriend.
Okay, but we just talked about another Jeremy too, because Sandra was trying to bang.
That's a 14-year-old kid in Murray, Kentucky.
Okay, so we pushed him aside. That's
And the other
over.
Jeremy
is Heather's boyfriend
in
okay.
Florida.
Okay.
Does he know
He's
Rod
the-
the vampire?
Yes, remember he was there doing the incantation.
All right.
And we were like, don't.
Right, because
Like-
he was drinking from
He didn't
Janine?
drink from anybody.
Janine,
He
not
was just-
Jeremy, but
Yes.
Rod and Janine. That's when
Correct.
Sandra, okay.
Correct.
Okay.
So much has
Okay.
happened.
I know,
had to
and
go back.
everybody listening
Okay.
right now is like, what's going on?
No, they're not. They're following this.
Yeah.
They're with us.
Okay.
Right.
Well, Jeremy said that Heather talked about Rod constantly. And Jeremy's the exact opposite of Rod. He's an athlete. He's a popular kid. He played football, actually, I think I read.
Okay.
But Jeremy really liked her. And according to him, Heather was just a little bit of an outcast from the rest of the school. She was different. And she believed 100% everything that Rod told her, even his story of being a centuries-old vampire, and that he would take her away and become a family. And he noticed the scars and nicks on her forearm. So maybe her parents don't notice, but this is her boyfriend.
Sure.
So he's probably kissing her neck or whatever, and he sees the scars and nicks on her forearms. And he thinks that Heather's depressed, and she is, and he's read where depressed people cut themselves, and they do. And there's a resource page on Hitched to Homicide, so if you are a cutter or you need help, go there. We always want to give resources to people.
Yes, we do.
He didn't know all that much about the blood drinking because she had not done it. And when he finds out, he knows he has to keep Heather away from Rod, even if he didn't want to be her boyfriend anymore. So here's this guy. He's like, I can't do this with you, for you, be around you.
Yeah.
But I can't let you be with him.
He's a good guy.
He's a protector. Yeah. And here's how this is going to go down. November 23rd, Charity Kesey, 16, Dana Cooper, 19, Scott Anderson, 16, and 16-year-old Rod Ferrell make a plan. According to Rod, it was a really spur-of-the-moment thing, not planned at all. Quote, I had taken a golden dragonfly acid. I dropped 10 strips of that, and we arrived in Florida 12 hours later, end quote.
Holy cow.
You did 12 strips of acid and was driving?
Whoa.
I don't even know what to do with that.
I don't either.
And how did they get there? Well, they drove Scott's Buick Skylark, the piece of shit. He took it without asking because he's only 16, right? But the car made it. But by the time they make it to Florida, they're tired, they're hungry, and the girls are complaining, especially Charity, who's already homesick. She wants to go back to Murray.
She's 14, right?
Yes, and she wants to go back to Murray. And part of the reason is because all Rod talked about was that Florida was amazing, and Eustis, Florida was amazing. It was everything that Murray, Kentucky wasn't. And when they get to Eustis, Florida, they're like, what the dude? Because this is the Florida version of Murray, Kentucky.
Oh, wow.
It was just a small town.
Yeah.
None of them were impressed.
Wow.
But he reminded everyone that they were heading on to New Orleans because there, the vampire culture was huge and they would have a place to stay and a place to fit in. And he's not lying because the vampire culture was big in New Orleans.
Okay.
Yep.
But not killing people, but the lifestyle.
Yeah.
But the Buick Skylark's on its last wheel, and when they finally make it to Florida, here's what 12 hours on the road, tired, hungry, will get you if you're just a teenager.
And lots of acid.
Yeah.
Honesty, because Charity left to be with Rod because she thinks they're going to get married. Charity tells Rod on the way to Florida that while she's feeling very vulnerable and homesick about the whole thing, that she's pregnant.
Oh.
Even though she's not sure if she's pregnant or not. She tells him she's pregnant.
Okay.
Scott, whose home life was in and out of foster care, he just wanted his family. He's Rod's lackey. He's going to do anything that he asks of him.
He thinks he's meeting his mate, Heather, soon. Okay.
Dana just wanted to get away from Murray. She wanted a different life. But Charity realizes that Rod has slept with both Heather and her best friend Janine, and they're on their way to see these two girls. And he talked about how great both of those girls were in Florida while he's on acid. He also talked about killing Heather's parents, but nobody really thought too much about it because Rod always talked about killing people. He always talked about killing people and told people that he had killed people. And everyone's like, yeah, okay. But when they arrive in Eustis, they stop at a gas station and a Kmart, and both times the girls think that they're going to get something to eat, but they don't. They don't have any money. And then when they stop at the Kmart, it's only to buy razors.
Okay.
They go to one of Rod's friends' home in Eustis. Her name is Shannon. And Shannon lives in a really nice part of town. And when she sees Rod, she's like, what the hell happened? Because when he left Eustis, Florida, he was interested in the occult and vampire and the whole 9 yards. And when he came back a year later, he was a completely different person. And she thinks...
Like physically speaking?
Mentally, the way he was talking.
Okay.
And Shannon's like, these are a bunch of crazy backwood Kentucky people. Bunch of backwood hicks. And like she can hear the banjos playing from Deliverance. And she ends up feeding them. Scott plays Nintendo. Rod was on the phone, and Dana and Charity were on the back porch smoking. And Rod tells Shannon his plan is to meet Janine at midnight and to pick Heather up at school. And then the next day, by the way, Shannon's not a vampire, doesn't have anything to do with any of that.
But she knows.
She was just his friend in high school.
Right,
Okay.
Right.
The next day, Monday, November 25th, the Buick has a flat. It's at this point that they realize the car's not going to make it from Florida to New Orleans. They're all back at Shannon's parents' house, and they have a plan. Heather and Janine are officially in on the trip to New Orleans, and they're going to steal Heather's parents' SUV.
Oh, wow.
Quote, but first we're going to kill Heather's parents, end quote.
No.
This is Rod. And Rod wants to tell Shannon how he plans on doing it. He's telling Shannon this, quote, I'm going to decapitate them people, end quote. To which Dana replies, can I go? I want to do something to them.
What?
And Rob replies, yeah, I might need help.
Wow.
Okay, these are stellar.
Yeah, so it's crazy. It's crazy. So who are these people that he wants to kill? Heather's parents.
Yeah.
Rod's never met them before. He's not even sure where Heather lives.
Okay.
So let's meet the Wendorfs, because we always talk about the victims on this podcast because we want to talk about how they lived and not just how they died.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So let's meet the Wendorfs. Richard James Wendorf Rick was born a twin on July 3rd, 1947 in Oshkosh, Wisconsin. His parents are James and Betty Sue. He has a twin brother named Bill. Ruth Queen was born in Hartsvest, West Virginia in 1942. She moved to Logan, West Virginia and married Joe Queen. By the time she's in her 20s, she realized that she'd made a mistake getting married to Joe. But in 1966, they moved to Central Florida and were raising two girls, Paula and Sandra. And by the time Paula is 16, Ruth and Joe are separated. And Ruth started working at Crown, Cork, and Seal, a factory. She was a working mom. She didn't date at all. 8 years later, she meets Richard James Wendorf, Rick, at her job. And when Rick meets Ruth, it was love at first sight for him.
Okay.
They'd only been dating a short while when Ruth became pregnant. Rick had talked her into moving in with him, but Ruth really didn't want to. Technically, she was still married to Joe.
Oh.
And they hadn't agreed to a divorce, even though they'd been apart for all these years, like 9 years.
Yeah.
And although they were never married, she was soon pregnant with Heather, second baby. Now, Rick was a hardworking man, smart, good businessman, and he worked middle management with the manufacturer of metal cans and plastic containers for orange juice. He was known to be very honest. He enjoyed playing golf. He was a thrifty guy. And I read where he always managed to save money each week. When he quit smoking, he put the money he would have spent on cigarettes into a special account and ended up buying a bunch of Disney stock with his cigarette money.
Brilliant.
They were both known to be very loving and kind. Ruth was a stay-at-home mom, and her daughter Sandra still lived with her mother until Ruth and Rick moved in together.
Okay.
Ruth loved to garden and paint landscape pictures. She was a quilter and had a few chickens that they kept on a plot of land just east of Eustis. This is something Robin's going to love. She had a rooster named Floyd.
Oh, yes.
Nice.
Yes. I just named the two new kittens Kevin and Helen.
There you go.
Thank you.
Kevin and Helen.
I like the name Kevin.
Thank you. I do too.
These two are raising their girls with a light hand, and Rick's dad had even teased him that the two girls, Jennifer and Heather, had him wrapped around their little finger. This was a family that went to the Eustis high school football games together to watch Jennifer, who was a cheerleader. And Jennifer and Heather are very different, but they loved each other. Jennifer was a popular kid, and Heather was more of a loner with her Barbie doll with the noose on her backpack.
Okay.
Right.
Now, on the night of Monday, the 25th
Okay, I'm getting nervous.
of November, the Wendorf home at 24135 Green Tree Lane was quiet. Jennifer was out for the night. Heather was with Rod and the gang after her ex-boyfriend Jeremy Huber had tried to talk her out of going with them. They pick up Heather and drive away from the house. It's around 9 p.m., and Rod and Scott hide in the woods behind the house just long enough to watch the Buick drive away. These two are really confused as to which house was the Wendorfs. So they started out at a neighbor's house, but it had an alarm, and there were children inside, and they realized they're at the wrong place, so they left. They were walking around and looking in all the windows.
Oh my God, the brain matter.
Wow.
The brain matter. Okay.
Rod thought that's called foreshadowing.
Oh, no. Sorry.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
They moved to the ranch home a few hundred yards away. Rod didn't know what Heather's parents' house looked like. He didn't know what Heather's parents looked like. He goes to all these windows, just like he had done next door, trying to just assess the scene. They thought they might have to break in, but then what they realized was that Heather has left the garage door open for them.
Oh, no.
Rod tells Scott that he's going to take out the dad, and Scott will have to take out the mom. And Scott tells him that he's going to knock her out with a wooden club. In fact, they both have wooden clubs. But as they walk through the garage, Rod says, I think we might need something better. And he looks through all the tools in the garage. He bypasses a machete, a chainsaw, and an axe, and he picks up a crowbar.
Oh, wow.
There's a glare on the television set as they walk down the hallway. In the master bedroom, Murphy Brown is on the television and Ruth is taking a shower. In the family room, Rick is asleep on the couch. They slip past him and they go and cut the phone cords in the back bedrooms. Back when you could cut a phone cord.
That's
Right.
Yeah.
When they walk into the family room again, Rick lifts his head. Quote, it was as he started to turn around, I saw he was coming out and actually, well, boom, right across the temple in the head. He was out cold. And while he was out cold, I figured, whatever, because if he gets up, I'm a f***ing dead mother. So I just beat him until he died. I beat him in the head and chest because he wouldn't stop breathing, end quote.
Is that Rod?
That's
Wow.
Rod.
He's
A monster.
He wanted to make sure that he was dead, so he took the crowbar and stabbed him through the chest. He was driving a stake through his heart, basically.
okay. All the parallel imagery is horrifying, and the idea of him wanting to not be human is completely inhuman.
Yeah. Yeah.
Disgusting. Okay.
The blows were so forceful that blood spatters were found 360 degrees around the living room. They even found tooth fragments on his shirt where he was struck so hard that it knocked his teeth out.
Oh my God.
It was brutal. He beat him brutally.
Wow.
He turns over his body and searches Rick's body for the keys. He's looking for the keys to the car. And he's looking for cash. And there's no cash in the wallet, so Rod grabbed his Discover card and left the body to look for Heather's mom, who's in the shower. This is everybody's worst nightmare. You are in the shower and
It's like
someone's
Psycho.
in your
It's
house.
Psycho.
It's
Yeah.
Psycho.
Yeah.
Now, Scott just stood there frozen, watching the whole thing. He never picked up anything. He didn't use his wooden club, nothing. Ruth comes out of the bathroom in her robe and makes it to the kitchen. She's holding a hot cup of coffee in her hand. She sees the crowbar, and then she sees Rod and Scott and says, what do you want? What are you doing here? Are you all friends of Heather's? She can't see her partner, Rick, on the couch. Rod tells her to shut up and prepares to hit her with the crowbar, but Ruth throws her hot coffee at him,
Yes.
which is a great self-defense
Good job.
move.
Yeah.
People, if you've got something hot, I was even thinking the other day when I thought somebody was following me, I had hand sanitizer and I was like, I'll squirt it right in their eyes. Whatever you have, make it a weapon. She throws hot coffee at him, which enrages Rod. He lunges at her and she scratches at his face. Scott isn't moving. He's just standing there. But as soon as Rod recovers from the hot coffee and the scratches, he karate kicks Ruth to the ground.
Wow.
Then he starts beating her with the crowbar. He hits her over the head a dozen times. He beats her head to a pulp. And when I
Sounds
say
like the
pulp,
Lizzie Borden.
I mean a pulp.
That's terrible.
Rod tells Scott to search the house for money while he goes into Rick's closet to look for cash too. He finds a pocket knife, which he takes with him. And then for kicks while he's in the family room, Rod flips Rick over and using a cigarette, he burns a V for vampire on Rick's chest. He's leaving his mark. So he's bludgeoned these people to death and he's walking around smoking in their house, just looking for money, looking for credit cards, looking for whatever. And when he's done, he asks Scott what they should do with the bodies.
Oh my God.
And Scott says, quote, well, we could throw them in the pool, end quote. And Rod says, quote, that's sick. Man, you're one morbid end quote. And I'm thinking to myself,
Oh my
he's
God.
a morbid.
Oh my
Yeah.
God. God.
Jeez.
This is like nightmare inducing.
Yeah.
Okay.
He tells Scott that he feels like a god and the human sacrifices have given him a rush. Then Rod has Scott come and look at Ruth in the kitchen, telling Scott that she doesn't look real. And he tells Scott that he was just like a little kid in an amusement park watching a freak show.
God, that is so sick.
Yeah.
Rod finds the keys to the family's Ford Explorer, and these two take off their blood-spattered shirts. Rob grabs a garbage bag he notices in the garage, cleans off the crowbar so he can take it with him, and he orders Scott to drive. And a few minutes later, these two are at the gas station washing up. They take their shirts, douse them in gasoline, and burn them in a nearby woods. They remove every trace of blood they can. They remain calm, and they discuss their plan for reuniting with the girls. They're going to tell Charity and Dana, but not Heather, that they've killed her parents. The house is going to sit silent for an hour until Jennifer comes home between 10:30 and 11. She sees the Explorer is gone. She tiptoes through the house thinking her dad is asleep on the couch because the TV's still going. She keeps her head down because she's late for curfew, so she's trying to get into her room without being noticed. We've all done this.
Yeah.
She goes straight to her room, which means she doesn't have to go through the kitchen or the family room.
Oh my God, she sees none of this?
She sees none of it. She picks up the phone because she's going to call her boyfriend and tell him that she's home, safe, and realize that the line is dead.
Yeah.
She has a cell phone. She pulls her cell phone out of her purse. She calls her boyfriend and says, hey, I made it home okay. She tells him good night. Then she decides, I'm hungry, and she's going to go raid the kitchen.
Uh-oh.
And as she walks into the kitchen, she sees a trail of blood on the white floor and finds her mother dead. She runs to the family room to wake her sleeping dad, and she finds what is left of him.
Oh, wow.
Oh.
She is 17 years old. She's a senior.
My God.
Now, just after 10:30 that night, Jennifer calls 911. She tells them that her mother and father are dead and that her sister is missing. She thinks someone has taken Heather.
Her sister, yeah.
And the dispatcher stays on the phone with Jenny until the police and medics arrive. Meanwhile, Rod and Scott have washed up, and Charity, Heather, and Dana are in the Buick waiting for them. They're like off on the side of the road, and they go zipping past in the Ford Explorer, and Charity, who's driving the Buick, follows. But according to Heather, she's freaking out because this was not the plan.
It wasn't?
Apparently, she didn't know they were going to steal the car, which I'm like, did you know or didn't you know? And this is going to be a controversy from here on out.
All right.
Okay?
Okay.
So strap this one on.
Yeah.
The plan was for the boys to get her BFF Janine, and then after the girls stopped off at Jeremy's, they were going to drive the Buick over to Janine's to meet up with everybody. But when they went to pick up Janine, she was doing homework. She wasn't even packed. She wasn't going anywhere. Janine had changed her mind.
Okay. Okay.
Remember, she's the old girlfriend.
Right,
Okay.
right.
Yeah.
And Heather is scared when they go to pick up Janine and she's not packed. But Janine convinces her that Rod has been talking about killing people forever, including her own parents. She gets Heather calmed down and Janine says she'll get packed. But for right now, there's no Janine. She hadn't been picked up. And when the Explorer stops, Charity approaches Rod while Heather sits in the back seat and waits. She wants to turn around and pick up Janine. She's like, but there's no Janine. Where's Janine? Because they were supposed to walk and meet them in the Buick. When the Explorer stops, Charity approaches Rod while Heather sits in the back seat and waits. She wants to turn around and pick up Janine. And when Charity gets back in the car, she tells Heather to shut up, that Rod had done something that she couldn't explain. And when she asks one more question, she's told, quote, Rod's your sire. Ask him when we make the next stop, end quote. So Charity's like, I'm not telling you that your parents are dead. Someone's going to have to tell you that your parents are dead.
Right.
Okay.
But here's what Heather thinks, that the boys were walking to get Janine, and after she and the other girls had stopped at Jeremy's, they were supposed to drive by Janine's and meet up. But now Heather is thinking, what did he do at my parents' house? And how did they get my family car? Did he tie them up? You know, she knew that Rod wasn't being followed. So these two cars stop, the Explorer and the piece of shit Buick, and Rod switches the plates on the Buick and the Explorer.
Okay.
And now they're officially on the run. And Heather's not really saying anything.
Did they just dump the Buick at
They
this
dumped
point?
the Buick.
They're all in the Ford.
They're all in the Ford Explorer.
Okay.
Okay.
But Janine was ready to run away. They just didn't go pick her up. They never came to get her. That's what they were supposed to be doing, when instead they were murdering Heather's family.
But you said Janine had no intention of going.
Yeah, because when they showed up, she hadn't packed a thing. She was working on a book report that had to do with Edgar Allan Poe. That's what I read.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Oh,
I mean, these
so
are
many
kids.
ironies. Yeah.
There's such kids. And the irony. There you go.
Yeah.
But what happened was Janine's mom Suzanne LeClaire, she finds her daughter, and Janine spills the beans on everything. She was waiting for Heather. She was going to run away with Rod and Heather, and her mom gets her to come back home. She's like waiting outside for them, and they never come. And Suzanne is like, this is all wrong. Come back in the house. Tell me what's going on. She tells her that they were all going to run away. And Janine's mom, Suzanne's like, I've got to call the Wendorf's house.
Yeah.
I've got to call Heather's parents.
Sure.
She puts Janine back in her room to finish her homework, and Suzanne drives to the Wendorf's home where she finds the police. They're everywhere. She asks police, what's going on? She tells them that Heather was going to run away with her daughter, and the police were like, we need to talk to your daughter.
Yeah.
And Janine makes an official statement to the police that night. They want to check Janine's hands for gunpowder residue. I have no idea why, because nobody
guns.
at the Wendorfs
Yeah.
was shot. They'd been bludgeoned to death.
Right.
But then the media got a little kernel of this, and they ran with the story that somehow Janine was mixed up with the murders, and eventually it took Janine down to the point where she ended up in a mental health clinic. Because all these stories went out with her name that she was involved with them.
Yeah.
She was involved with them. She wasn't involved with the murders.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
And she ended up in a mental health clinic for a week. But back at the Wendorf home, police had collected hundreds of fingerprints, shoe prints. They weren't even professional killers, that's for sure.
Christ.
Rod's evidence, his DNA was everywhere, but there was no murder weapon. But soon with Janine's help, the word vampire came up, and there was a V burnt into Rick's body.
Disgusting.
So gross.
So early that morning, the police pound on the door and wake up Heather's boyfriend, Jeremy Huber. And he says, yeah, I'll give you a name. It's Rod Ferrell. And then they ask Janine, what's the name? And Janine says, his name is Rod Ferrell. And an APB goes out before dawn even breaks. And Florida is looking for a blue Ford Explorer. And they're on the road and in the air, in helicopters. They're looking for him. They just didn't know which direction were they going.
Didn't Janine know that they were going to New Orleans?
No, she had to know that they were going to New Orleans.
yeah.
That was the plan all along. You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
But everything that I read, they said they had no idea where they were going. The vampire crew is on the run.
Okay.
And Heather's in the car, and she's like, my parents are going to kill me when they find out
Well, guess what?
that you've been a part of a scheme to steal their car. And then Charity says, your parents aren't going to find out. And now Rod is still high from his killing spree. And according to him, quote, the most intensified part was a realization, an amazing epiphany. It was really like, oh my God, I've done something that is regulated only to God as far as choosing who lives and who dies. And I've done it. End quote.
Psychotic.
Yes.
Yep.
Oh my God, Chris, so psychotic.
Yeah.
And in the middle of all this, when Heather's going on about my parents are going to kill me, Charity finally tells Heather that her parents are dead. And Heather's like, stop kidding. And Heather tells Charity, maybe it's not true because Rod is always bullshitting about that kind of stuff. And Heather thinks that Rod is trying to scare them. And Charity agrees. So it's like, did he really kill them?
Right.
Because he's lied
He's
about...
the boy who cried wolf
Right.
Yeah,
so
he's
many
lied
times.
about so much stuff. Had he really done it?
Yeah.
They sleep in the car, and the next morning they use Rick Wendorf's Discover card at Walmart to buy some snacks and a hunting knife.
Okay.
Then they fill up in Tallahassee, also using the card, so police can track this card.
Yeah.
Heather's confused as to whether Rod has killed her parents or not, and as they drive to New Orleans, they run out of gas. Now, I'm just like, how stupid. They've got a credit card, unless it just stopped working. I don't know. But in the glove compartment, they're on the side of the road, and in the glove compartment, they find Rick Wendorf's cell phone.
Oh.
He and Dana walked the next 5 miles to a rest area where Rod called his grandfather, and his grandfather told him the police had called about him. And Rod tells him, well, we have a stolen car, and his grandfather tells him, turn yourself in. And then he pretended that the service was bad. He was like, I'm losing you. And then he hangs up and tells Dana, he looks at Dana and says, people in Kentucky are so stupid.
Oh.
That was his quote.
Oh, jeez.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Heather's feeling weak in the Explorer, and Scott and Charity tell her it's because she just crossed over and she needed to drink. So Charity cuts herself for Heather to drink the blood. All this is so delusional. And when Rod arrives back with gas, he's with a cop. He's with a patrol officer.
What?
And somehow Rod got this cop to leave without ever having to show him his driver's license. They had gas. They had to go buy gas. They're walking. A patrolman finds him and takes him back to the stolen car
This is giving me gas.
and drives away.
What state were they in at this point?
They're still in Florida. They're trying to get over to New Orleans. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I got nothing, but okay. I mean, it's not like Rod looks like a normal kid.
Yeah. And Rod says, police are so stupid. And as they get on their way, he looks at them and says, our new family is waiting for us in New Orleans. They're waiting for us. And when they arrive in New Orleans, this is when Rod tells Heather that your parents are dead. He takes her aside and he tells her that they're dead. And she says, I want to go home. And that the stupid joke had gone too far. And he tells her, we can't turn around. Your parents are dead. I mean, she's not getting it. And then she asks, she said, well, what did you do to him? And he tells her about the crowbar. And Heather is still thinking this is just all a bunch of BS. He's just making this up.
Oh, I don't see this ending well.
Yeah.
In the woods outside New Orleans, these kids build a fire. They were cold. They'd been on the run for 2 days. It was Wednesday, and the next day was Thanksgiving, and they're all starving. So they break into a home. They steal some food, but they don't find any cash. They're in suburban New Orleans, and Scott drives 90 miles an hour to get them out of there after they steal a bunch of shit. At around midnight, they go to a New Orleans cemetery, and Rod starts chanting and invoking the spirit of the underworld. They all find themselves by the Mississippi River, and Rod tells Heather that she needs to get rid of all of her personal belongings, photos of her family. He wants her to throw it all in the river. And Rod is throwing in the river the crowbar.
Get rid of the death weapon.
He made the kids all do the same thing. But Heather's starting to believe that her parents are dead. Just now, she's starting to believe that her parents are dead, and she's numb to all of it at this point. Charity pitches a fit and screams at Rod as they're walking the streets of New Orleans, and her scream attracts
the police.
a cop who stops them. Rod speaks with the cop for a bit and tells him that they're just playing around and he needed to get the whole crew to his family's house because they were all there for Thanksgiving. He made it out like they were just a bunch of kids, like cousins or whatever, that are in town for Thanksgiving. And the cop offers to give them a ride, but they all decline.
No way.
Okay, I was going to say, this is dumb cop number 2. But
Yeah.
okay. Is there a national search going for them?
There is. And here's what I don't get. If Heather thought that Rod had killed her parents and she was scared and she wanted to go home, why didn't she take this opportunity to tell that cop that she wanted a ride or that she was scared? Then just to get away from the group to say, I'm worried, I think he's killed my parents. But she does not do this.
Wow.
She doesn't do this. Back in Eustis, Jenny is dealing with the aftermath of her parents' murders, and the autopsies are happening. Rick Wendorf had suffered 22 chop wounds, including the laceration to his chest with a blunt object and the marked V. And Ruth had bruising indicating a struggle, and DNA was taken from under her fingernails. She's been struck 21 times, 16 of those to the head. One of them was to the brain stem. She'd basically been decapitated.
Oh my God.
There are arrest warrants out for Rod, Justin Ferrell, Charity Lynn Kesey, Howard Scott Anderson, Dana Cooper, and Heather Ann Wendorf. And at first, police had no idea where these kids were headed, like I said, which direction in the stolen car. But on Wednesday night, Charity called her mom.
Oh.
She calls Jody Remington in South Dakota. Her mom lives in South Dakota. She would go visit her. I read where she would go visit her mom in the summer and stuff.
Okay.
But she calls her mom in South Dakota and asks for money. They need money. And Charity's mom works for the local Piedmont, South Dakota Sheriff's Department.
Oh, wow.
Good Lord.
Yeah.
She tells Charity that the murders are national news, and she tells Charity to get the whole group to safety. This is what her mom says. You need to get the whole group to safety. And Charity says, Mom, I remember seeing a Howard Johnson's nearby. There's a Hojo's nearby. And she says, get everybody to Howard Johnson's. I'm going to wire you money to that location. They'll have Western Union. I'm going to wire you money to that location. So she hangs up the phone, and Jody immediately calls the authorities and says, here's what's going down. Here's where the kids are. And when the kids arrived at the Howard Johnson's, well, according to Scott, he'd never seen so many cop cars and flashing lights. They were waiting for him. So it was one kid who was tired and 14 and wanted to go home, and she calls her mom. What do? You call your mom.
Oh my God.
You're at a sleepover and you want to come home. You call your mom. You're at sleepaway camp and you want to come home. You're miss home. You call your mom. She called her mother.
Yeah.
She called her mother, and that was the end of it. The kids surrender without a fight, and in the back of the cop car, Rod says, quote, I'll tell you everything you want to know. And Officer Ashton Thomas Dewey is like, you've been advised your rights, but shut up and don't start making a statement now. And he tells the officer he needs to see Charity because Charity is carrying his child. In the interrogation room, Rod tells him he didn't care about life, especially his own. He was sick of living, of being accused, explaining that he left Murray, Kentucky because, quote, all the cops were bugging me for something I didn't do, meaning the animals. He said that he didn't do it. And Rod said that all he wanted was to take Charity on a road trip. He wanted to have a getaway with her because she was supposedly pregnant. Now, according to Charity, she told him in the car on the way down.
Right.
So I don't know. I mean, he's clearly making this up as he goes along.
He's
delusional.
Not right.
Nuck and futz.
Yeah.
Rod gives the police the names of all the people in the Explorer with him. Then he goes into the details about the road trip from Murray to Eustis, Florida, telling them about their stop at Heather's home. Rod told him it was about 7 p.m. on Monday when the two boys walked away from Scott's Buick and then instructed Heather to pack and then hooked up with the other girls so she couldn't see her boyfriend. Then he offers the officers a detailed description of what went on inside the house.
Wow.
Oh my God. I mean, literally, he told them what he did.
He's given it all
Whoa.
up. He's very proud of all of this.
Oh my
and there
God,
are
the
clips
mental
of him.
illness is crazy.
There are
large.
clips of him explaining this to the detectives. I will post them in the In-Laws and Outlaws.
Oh.
And this is what he says. He said, quote, Scott was following behind me like a little lost puppy. So before the mother got out of the shower, I went to her dad and smacked the out of him until he finally quit breathing. So yes. And then he pauses. I'm admitting to being a murderer. End quote.
He's very proud of it.
Very proud of it. Sure. Rod waives his rights to have an attorney, and he tells the police that he's taking full blame because he said the girls weren't with him when he killed the Wendorfs and that he hadn't discussed the murders with anyone until 10 minutes before they did it, and that Scott was basically an accessory because he was good at talking about murder, but he hadn't been able to do anything about murder. It's like he was disappointed in Scott.
Is he still 16, so he's a minor?
They're all minors except for Dana, who's 19.
Oh.
Right.
When he's asked if he feels any remorse about killing the Wendorfs, Rod replied, quote, I'm used to sacrifices. I'm used to seeing people's brains fly out the back of their heads. I've been hanging around gangs and cults forever, and killing is a way of life. Animals do it, and that's the way humans are. We're just the worst predators of all, really, end quote.
Wow.
And the whole time he is saying this, he is smiling.
That is creepy.
Jeez.
A chill just went up Robin's back. She just did the shake. Somebody stepped on her grave. Now, back in Florida, they're questioning Jenny and telling her that they have her sister. And Jenny doesn't think Heather had anything to do with the murder, but one of Heather's friends at school disagrees. She tells police that just a couple weeks prior, Heather had been talking about wanting her parents dead. And when authorities question Jenny, she recalls that months before, Heather had asked her, quote, have you ever plotted mom and dad's death? End quote. And Jenny said, no.
Yeah.
And Heather told her, if you ever want to, quote, I have a perfect hitman. I know a guy. And when Jenny asks who, she says, Rod Ferrell. He kills people all the time, end quote. Now, later, Heather is going to say that she never had this conversation with her sister.
Of course she is.
Yeah.
Rod takes the blame for all of it. All of it. But when the case goes to trial in 1998, his conviction is beyond doubt. But would they sentence, because he's now 17, would they sentence a 17-year-old to the electric chair? And the answer is yes.
Yeah.
Rod gets the electric chair by a jury vote of 12-0. And it's what Rod wanted. Quote, death was simply an inevitability. When I told them execution meant little to nothing to me and that death would be preferable, I meant it, end quote.
Jeez.
Scott, Charity, and Dana, they all escape capital punishment. Scott Anderson was convicted of armed robbery and first-degree murder. He serves life without parole. Dana Cooper was sentenced to 17 years for armed robbery and third-degree murder. Charity Casey
Was 14 at the time, so.
Right.
received 10 years for armed robbery and third-degree murder. Of those arrested, only Heather went free, because a grand jury decided that she knew nothing of Rod's plans to murder her mom and dad.
I don't know how I feel about that.
Well, there are a lot of
people
people who don't know how they feel about that.
Little Charity, who sounds like a nightmare, did she spend 10 years in juvenile?
Because
She was 14.
she might have been in
but wait, 14.
She was 15 by the time,
15 the
she was
trial
serving,
Yeah.
Okay.
As for Jenny Wendorf, she went off to college in the fall. Heather lived with her attorneys until she came of age. She lived with her attorney until she turned 18. She lived with them through the trial, through everything. And then when she turned 18, they cut her loose.
Okay.
Rod's sentence was changed to life without parole in 1998 by the Florida Supreme Court because he was only 16 when he committed the murders. And while in prison, Rod's gotten married and divorced. He's now a 100% Christian man, if you believe that. He's 43 years old now, and in 2020, he was asking for his chance at parole.
No.
Because the U.S.,
No.
here's why. The U.S. Supreme Court ruled that juveniles should not automatically get life without parole sentences because scientific research shows that their brains are still developing.
No, I hope he did
Yeah,
not.
me too.
We have done more than one case about brutal, very young killers who want to be up for parole and their families who are desperately trying to keep them in prison.
Is her daughter Jenny and maybe her 2 grown daughters from her first marriage trying to stop it?
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Do we know?
Oh,
Okay.
yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
And
And
they
in
showed
2020,
up.
he did not get parole,
He,
correct?
he did not. He did not.
Good.
He did not.
Oh, thank God.
He was 16, and at this hearing in February of 2020, he actually apologized for the first time to the Wendorf family. This is the first time he's ever apologized to them for killing them. Quote, "I know nothing I say or do can bring them back.
No kidding.
I hope you know just how truly sorry I am."
That's it?
End quote. Yeah.
That's it.
And the family's not buying it.
Bite my butt. Whatever that's a bite my bullshit.
Rod says that Heather never explicitly suggested that she wanted her parents dead, but she dropped, quote, hints. She has denied it in the interrogation room, in depositions, in interviews, and in an appearance before one of the 2 grand juries that met to decide her fate.
Did these letters ever surface that they wrote back and forth about killing her
No,
parents?
the only letters that ever surface are the ones where they're talking about their past lives.
And that's between her and Scott.
Exactly.
That wasn't even between her
I
and Rod.
love it that you're listening.
Oh, dude, I'm sucked in like a, you know how I am.
Rod's new claim that he came to Eustis to save Heather is not credible, according to the judge. And 2 women also testified at the resentencing hearing, including a woman who said she wanted to marry Rod. Neither woman had known him for very long, according to the judge's order. And one of the resentencing defense experts went so far to say that the nature of the crime is not a fair indicator of whether a defendant can be rehabilitated.
What?
Yeah.
Who said that?
A resentencing defense expert. Yeah.
I don't know what I think about that.
Yeah.
As for the others, Scott received a life sentence, but has had his sentence reduced to 40 years and is set to be free in 2031. He was 16 when he went to jail. He will be 51 years old when he is released.
It's younger than us.
Charity Kesey got 10 years for her role and was released in March of 2006. And Dana, who was 19 and the only one who wasn't a minor, received a 17-year sentence, but was released in October of 2011.
So where are these people now?
I'm sure they're
Do we know?
laying very low.
Oh, yeah.
The girls are out. The boys are not. The girls are out.
God.
The boys are not.
Right.
Rod Ferrell was at one time the youngest man on death row in the United States.
Sure.
He now
Was
lives
he the first minor on death row? I mean,
in
probably.
Florida.
Yeah.
Probably, I'm
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
He now lives at the Tomoka Correctional Institution, a state prison in Daytona Beach, Florida. These murders tore the families apart. And although Heather has never been charged with anything, it's my understanding from everything that I read, she and her sister do not have a relationship. What happened to the Wendorfs divided a family completely.
I'm sure. Yeah.
And now that Rod won't be executed, he could possibly be the longest living inmate in the prison system.
Wow.
He's going to live there for the rest of his life, and he's been there since he was 16.
Well, you know what? Too bad, so sad.
Yeah.
That was what he did was, oh my God.
Twisted.
So that is the story of Rod Ferrell and the vampire murders. And that's all I have to say about that.
Okay, now that we've discussed real death, let me tell you about some fictional ways to die or be undead that will make you laugh. I'm Robin Peterman, and I'm a writer.
She's a best-selling USA Today and New York Times author who writes hilarious paranormal romance and women's fiction. She's got witches, werewolves, mermaids, and vampires.
Yes. And that would be the Hot Damned series about vampire antics and out-of-the-box characters like teeny little demons, trolls, wraiths, and Satan.
Satan likes to play poker.
And cheat.
Robin Peterman has written 55 novels and novellas, including the series like Good to the Last Death.
which is about Daisy the Death Counselor, who helps ghosts move on to their afterlife. She's also excellent at supergluing them back together when they lose a body part. She's also dating the Grim Reaper, and that's going really, really well.
And then there's my so-called mystical midlife.
Yes, which is about, okay, I'd always wondered what would happen if my characters actually came to life. So I wrote it. Clementine, a romance author, went through a heinous and very public divorce. Her husband banged the weather girl. It went viral on YouTube. And her characters show up to help get her life back on track.
And then there's shift happens.
As opposed to shit happens. It's shift because they're shifters. And that is about snarky, sexy, hilarious werewolves and shifters.
Magic and mayhem.
Witches and magic. Zelda, who's the heroine of that series, is one of my favorite people to write. Total badass. Also, her best friend, Sassy, is a hoot. Lately, Sassy's been learning the languages of the world, and she's working super hard on Canadian.
Sea shenanigans.
Okay, and that would be about mermaids and pirates. It's freaking hilarious. Some people would probably say jump the shark. I call it over the top.
Then there's handcuffs and happily ever afters.
Right, and that is snarky, sexy, hilarious contemporaries.
And all of Robin's books are available on Amazon and Audible. If you go to her website, robinpeterman.com/free-books, you can start reading one of her snarky, sexy, funny series today.
And coming July 11th, 2022, we've got As the Underworld Turns, a brand new series called Good to the Last Demon.
And September 19th, 2022, Book 8 of the Good to the Last Death series, a Hard Knock Midlife releases. Go to robinpeterman.com for all the information and how to one-click and get her books. That's robinpeterman.com. You'll find a link to all of it in the show notes.
Wow, that was sick, basically.
It was a lot.
Yeah, yeah, that's a lot to take in.
Yes.
But well, let's lighten things up just a little bit.
Let's do it. I'm ready. Robin's going to be our guest. Bless your hearter.
So I'm going to take a little break today, and Miss Robin's going to read our Bless Your Heart. So let's do it.
Well, bless your heart.
Dateline, Pinellas County, Florida. An armed teen was on the roof of a home in Dunedin, Florida. Okay? After allegedly firing shots at people in the area.
Oh, that's not funny.
Right. Not what I would call a good plan by any stretch of the imagination.
I mean, bless his heart, but that's not funny.
Yeah,
okay.
Bless his heart, not funny. We're going to get to the funnier part. Okay. So officers had established a perimeter around the outside of the residence on the 1100 block of Michigan Boulevard.
Okay.
And they'd held it for hours when, lo and behold, a buck-ass naked woman driving a golf cart interrupted the standoff just after midnight. Takes talent and brains, okay? And chutzpah. 28-year-old naked Jessica Smith of Boston drove through the active scene and ignored the officer commands to exit her golf cart.
So she's in the golf.
Yeah. Driving to the middle of the scene, of like an active shooter scene. So the brain power is astonishing. Smith, who had nothing to do with the standoff, she's completely innocent and naked and drunk, was in her birthday suit and reeked of alcohol.
Well, there's a surprise.
Bless her.
Bless her.
Pea-picking heart.
Bless her heart.
When she rolled right on past multiple marked law enforcement vehicles in the direction of the armed suspect, who was perched on the roof of a home. So many geniuses here. I don't know what to do. Yeah. So anyway, after her parking her clothing-free self in the middle of the standoff, she refused to leave the area because...
So there's a guy on a roof with a gun, and then there are all kinds of cop cars.
And she won't leave.
And they're like, I'm sure they're all aiming at him because this is like a standoff.
Correct.
And Flossie Mae just naked,
drive right in. Naked as a jaybird. Yeah. Okay, so here's what's not in this article, though. Why didn't she get shot? Is it because she was naked? Maybe. Okay, so anyway, she refused to leave. So I mean, personally, I'm kind of shocked she didn't get shot. But the sheriff's deputies eventually pulled her from the golf cart, handcuffed her naked as the standoff with the armed teen continued to unfold. And here's what they said. Here's what the cops had to say. The defendant had a distinct odor of alcoholic beverage coming from her person, and she was completely nude.
From her person. And she was completely nude.
That was according to the affidavit. The shooter, not smart, and he's not funny. The shooter was charged with loitering and prowling aggravated assault against a law enforcement officer, weapons charges, and resisting an officer without violence, according to the sheriff's deputies.
And being distracted during a standoff.
He's 14 and there's a naked woman.
Clearly. Well, we don't even know. They don't say how old. He's a teen.
Oh,
We don't
I thought
know.
you said
Armed
14.
teen.
Okay, he's just a teen.
Yeah, just a teen. So it could be
He's
any-
under 20.
yes.
He's under 20 and
Now,
armed.
Listen, when I was a teen and if I was up on a roof with a gun and a naked lady ran in front of me, the last thing I'd be thinking about is pointing my gun.
Great, exactly.
Be pointing something else.
Yeah, exactly. Now, our naked friend Jessica, the girl in the birthday suit, was charged with resisting an officer without violence because she was not a violent
There
gal,
was no
just
place to hide. There was no
incredibly
place to hide a weapon.
Yeah, incredibly stupid. So I'm just going to have to say there was a whole lot of stupid going on, and I would like to bless all of their hearts.
Well, bless your heart.
Bless their hearts.
Nicely
Amen.
done, Robin.
Way to go, Robin.
Thank you.
Well, if you have a bless your heart, you can send it to chris@hitchedhomicide.com. That's the email. I don't look at them. I just pass them along to Rob.
Yep.
So make sure you put it in the subject line, or you can go to hitchedhomicide.com. There's a pull-down menu and a form you can fill out to send it to us. We want your bless your hearts.
Yes, we do.
I want to thank again New York Times bestseller Robin Peterman
Yes,
for
thank
being
you,
here.
Robin.
All of her information, direct links to all her books and her Audible stuff, it'll all be in the show notes, so you don't have to go too far to find it. Thank you for being here today. Thank you for always being a supporter of me. I love you so much.
I love you too.
My best friend, I love you so much.
Hey, I love you too.
I love you. We love you as well, honey. He's out in the studio.
There's
We
a whole
love
lot
you
of-
as
there's a
well.
whole lot of
so
love.
much love
Like
going
real
on.
Scotty loves you too.
That's right.
I
That's
might
right.
be taking Scotty home with me.
That's all we have this week. Thanks for joining us again. That's my best friend Robin sitting across from me. That's my husband sitting out in the studio.
And that's my beautiful bride.
Join us next time on Hitched to Homicide.
Bye, y'all.